Let's talk about the fall of New York City for a moment, which is like the San Francisco of the East Coast. Once one of the greatest cities in the world, now a complete crime-infested wasteland, having fallen to the idiocy of the Democrat Party and liberalism. And now, this clown, 33-year-old Zoran Mandani, an admitted socialist, may be the next mayor of the city to pound the final nail into its coffin.
It's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism, to stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors, and to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party.
Oh, we know that you're a model of the Democrat Party. We'll get more into him in a moment, and he very well may win because we're talking about the same city that voted Bill de Blasio in as their mayor.
Free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated.
Obviously.
You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries?
This was a promo that he put out during the COVID lockdowns, you may recall. And if you missed it, this is not a skit from a sketch comedy show. This is real. Bribing the citizens of New York City to get their experimental vaccine by offering them free French fries and a burger. And that's why Ron DeSantis posted, just when you thought Palm Beach real estate couldn't go any higher, because any remaining rich people there who have a brain are going to leave and move down to Florida, just like people did during the COVID lockdowns. This guy's a real piece of work, and credit to the local NBC News affiliate, which is often very different from the national brand name outlets. The local affiliates usually have a lot more independence and freedom, even though they operate under the banner of these big brand names.
Because I think that New Yorkers, more than they hate a politician they disagree with, they hate a politician they can't trust.
On the subject of trust, you've adopted different speaking accents in different scenarios.
But they go to their local bodega.
Is there one that's real and one that's affected?
What I would say is, as any immigrant knows, having been born in Kampala, Uganda, and then raised in South Africa and moving here when I'm 7 years old, is there are different parts of my life.
Worldwide tour is a worldwide tour is a worldwide tour.
Mandani was talking about a worldwide press tour back when he was a rapper.
Bring the flavor to the fish, bring the flavor to the rice.
In a Disney movie directed by his mother.
Nepotism and hard work goes a long way. Here in New York City, this is how I speak.
Well, that's not true. We've seen your campaign ads, sir.
बात ये नहीं है कि मैं क्या बनूंगा, बात ये है कि मैं क्या करूंगा हमारे communities के लिए और हर एक New Yorker के लिए.
An American campaign ad running for the mayor of America's biggest and most powerful city in a foreign language. Of course, catering to the non-assimilating, well, do we even call them immigrants if they haven't assimilated? The non-assimilating invaders. His stunning victory in the primary over Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, Fredo's older brother, has set off alarm bells across the country. Stephen Miller posted, New York City is the clearest warning yet of what happens to a society when it fails to control migration. Okay. To which Ted Cruz responded, yep. Because this was the scene in Iran, I'm sorry, New York City yesterday.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.
They're celebrating the Islamic New Year. So we have various different ethnic groups living within our country who have not assimilated to the Gregorian calendar, which has been the global standard for like 500 years. We have the Islamic New Year, the Jewish New Year is in September, the Chinese New Year is in February. But diversity is our strength, even though we can't agree to use the same calendar. And if you're a big nerd like me and you're interested in how the Gregorian calendar was developed as the global standard, maybe interested in this book, Calendar, Humanity's Epic Struggle to Determine a True and Accurate Year. And speaking of time, this was New York City back in the 1950s. A much simpler time, a much safer time, a much less diverse time, a whiter time. In fact, I don't think I've seen a single black person in this video yet. It must have been heaven. Oops. Did I say that out loud? Oh well, we're all thinking it anyway. But now, thanks to diversity and decades of Democrat policies and the fatherlessness problem amongst a certain community there. The city has turned into a complete Mad Max crime-infested wasteland where we need people like Daniel Penny to help keep law and order on the subways. But then you get the Democrat prosecutors who then charge him, maliciously persecuting him for protecting people. And while Republican Mayor Rudy Giuliani cleaned up that city better than anyone could imagine, here is Zoran's philosophy about police, posting previously in the quote, "We don't need an investigation to know that NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety." See, everything is upside down and backwards in the minds of the liberal lunatics. The police are the threat to public safety.
Oftentimes, we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages.
Yes, when the homeowner spots the culprit and confronts them and then are attacked by the person, that is an additional crime, sir.
Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling.
Yes, because burglary often escalates into robbery, which involves not just the theft of property, but also violence or even the threat of violence, you moron.
So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence of the highest degree.
District attorneys prosecuting violent criminals is the real violence, according to him. Sounds just like Benjamin Crump, that bottom-feeding, ambulance-chasing lawyer whose claim to fame was glomming on to the Trayvon Martin family, alongside race-baiting extraordinaire Al Sharpton, who have come up with the solution to stop all crime in America.
We can get rid of all the crime in America overnight, just like that.
By deporting all the black people? I'm sorry, that would actually only get rid of 50% of the crime because, as I'm sure you know by now if you're a regular viewer, black people are 13% of the population but commit 50% of the crime. And it's actually even more disturbing than that because the overwhelming majority of that crime is committed by black males who are only 6.5% of the population. Okay, but please continue, sir. Tell us your brilliant solution.
And people ask how, Attorney Crump? Change the definition of crime. Of course. If you get to define what conduct is going to be made criminal, you can predict who the criminal is going to be.
It sounds like we're criminal, though.
Yeah.
Our existence is
the culture.
criminal.
Well, I mean, black culture in America is synonymous with thug culture, which is inherently criminal. So, yes, you know your community has a problem when these people are considered to be the leaders and at the forefront of justice.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And
The correct answer would be yes. While there are certainly critiques to be made of capitalism, it is by far the most brilliant and innovative economic philosophy known to man. And it's highly unlikely that at this point, anything else that's any better is going to come along. It has elevated the United States to the world's superpower. It enables anyone who is hardworking and disciplined and responsible to make a living. Well, I guess it did until the Democratic Socialists started wasting all of our tax dollars on illegal aliens and slush funds for their buddies to ship overseas, and the military-industrial complex wasting all of our money. So, really, but that's not capitalism, though. That is crony capitalism.
I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality.
May I remind you that the city of New York during the Biden administration, and I'm sure still to this day, is paying $300 a night in what they call budget hotel rooms, because that's a budget in Manhattan, which is like the Beverly Hills of New York, for the illegal alien invaders. So not only do they break into our country by the hundreds of thousands during the Biden administration per month, but then they come here and then they siphon off American tax dollars, which, if you do the math, that is $9,000 a month just for one hotel room for them, which would pay the mortgage on a home that's worth more than $1 million. And this is just from last week. New York City inks a $1 billion shelter contract with hotels to house 86,000 criminal invaders and homeless, despite claims that the migrant crisis is easing. $1 billion in New York resident tax dollars being wasted on people who shouldn't even be here. During the height of the invasion crisis, 1 out of 5, 20% of the hotels in New York City was, and probably still is, housing the migrants, being used as the migrant shelters, which obviously drove the price up for residents and tourists, causing the Democrat Mayor Eric Adams to admit that the migrant crisis will destroy New York City. And then, of course, the powers that be indicted him on some trumped up charges because he had to be shut down. They couldn't allow him talking like that, especially during an election year. And even though he is a Democrat, he's a former cop, and I kind of like this guy.
So, this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them.
Sounds like aside from having immigrant fatigue, he also has black fatigue as well. I mean, don't we all? And if you want to express your immigrant fatigue, get a great shirt, and support my channel, then head on over to my online store, markdice.com, and order your Sorry No Vacancy, Deport Them All shirt. Now also available in a tank top, all of my designs in tank tops for the summer. So head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below and check them out.